Good morning, fight fans. We're back for UFC Fort Lauderdale. 13 fights. Not many expected to go the distance. Mike's MMA Picks here with your fight morning quick card breakdown. We have a plethora of great matchups ahead of us on what looks like a heck of a card from top to bottom. So we'll jump right in. First up, we have Douglas Lima's brother, Diego, taking on Court McGee. Diego Lima, men's welterweight division, 7,500 as far as Draftkings goes. 29 years old, plus 150 underdog, 13-7 record. Had a knockout victory over Chad Laprise recently. I'm not buying much into that. I know he had a decent run on Tough. Court McGee, on the other hand, 34 years of age, grinder. He's been in the octagon UFC for a long time. He's sitting at a minus 160 as far as the betting line is concerned. Big price tag, though, for Court McGee at 8,700. I expect this fight to play out against the cage. I could see Court McGee landing some takedowns. And what Court McGee is great at is breaking fighters' wills. We know Court McGee has a history with overcoming substance abuse, and his mental strength is up there with only a select few fighters. So he's coming towards the end of his career, taking a lot of damage. But I'm going to roll with Court McGee here. I think he's going to get this done. This fight is expected to go the distance, so make yourself aware of that. I'm not expecting a high DraftKings score from McGee, but 3 rounds. Let's see what he does. Next up, we have Angela Hill taking on Jodie Esquibel. This fight takes place at the women's 115-pound division. On paper, it looks like a squash match. Look at that betting line. Somehow, some way, Angela Hill has managed to creep up to hovering around minus 600. I don't think she's deserving of that line. But look at the opponent that she's facing. Jodie Esquibel, 32 years old, 6-4 mixed martial arts record. She doesn't have many of the skills that you'd look for from a fighter when you're drafting them for DraftKings. But you have to consider the bottom of the barrel price tag that you're getting here. You're going to get a fight that probably will go to a decision. Esquibel may end up with between 15 and 30 points. I'd suspect Angela Hill stays at range. That's where she's comfortable, landing strikes. She has been a prolific DraftKings scorer throughout her tenure with the UFC. But it depends. If you're comfortable with 80 to 90 points, if you're comfortable with that in cash, then roll with Angela Hill at $9,400. This fight just doesn't do it for me. But I can't hate on people hopping on the minus 580 favorite from a DraftKings perspective. As far as betting goes, I would stay away from that. Next up, we have Jim Miller, who is heading into his 43rd professional fight. This is a lightweight fight, taking on Jason Gonzales, who we haven't seen in quite some time. Jason Gonzales Last time we saw him out, he was getting smashed by none other than Gregor Gillespie. Gonzales, we've seen some discrepancy as far as his age goes. Long fighter. He's going to have a 3-inch reach against Jim Miller. Jim Miller will probably look to close the distance here. Jim Miller with an $8,600 price tag on DraftKings. This fight, I have a feeling this fight is going to fly under the radar. Gonzales, first round, should come out strong. Gonzales at 7,600, I suspect to be one of the highest owned underdogs on the card. I'd say second tier underdog. Plus 125 underdog. This fight should end inside of the distance. Jim Miller, last time we saw him out, he was fighting against Charles Oliveira in a rematch, and he ended up suffering a shoulder injury during that fight. We also know he has Lyme's disease. And this may be his final fight in the octagon. I tweeted out with 4 select fighters, and I asked who was going to be the fighter who retired tonight, and it was up there between Ben Saunders and Jim Miller. So I have a feeling he is going to lay his gloves in the octagon tonight, win or lose. We'll see. But you know you're going to get a grade A effort out of Jim Miller. You're going to have to put his lights out. It's either a Jim Miller victory by submission or Jason Gonzales win by knockout. I lean towards Gonzales here, but I'm going to be staying away from that from a wagering perspective. But I would recommend targeting this fight on DraftKings. Next up, we have men's lightweight division. Gilbert Burns against Mike Davis. This fight is not expected to go to the scorecards, sitting at minus 265. Gilbert Burns, your favorite, minus 245, 32 years of age. We know he brings world-class jiu-jitsu to the table. But under Henry Hooft, he does possess some dynamic striking, great counters, can throw elbows on the feet, heavy punches. Could be out-volumed, though. Against a Mike Davis, plus 225 underdog, 26-year-old. Mike Davis also has a 1.5-inch reach. Mike Davis coming in at 7,100 in DraftKings. This fight, it could go a couple of different ways. So if Gilbert Burns is smart, which we know he is, but he just has a tendency to throw hands. If he takes this fight to the ground, he's got a huge advantage here against Mike Davis. Mike Davis is probably going to look to keep this on the feet, going to look to land volume. Mike Davis, we saw against Yusuf, very impressive performance. And I think he's a live dog in this spot. It all depends on what Gilbert Burns' game plan is. I'm going to roll with Gilbert Burns in DraftKings. I believe that he has the ability to end this fight by submission, by knockout, and also if he wants to take this fight to the ground and grapple, he can do that, and he can keep the fight on the ground. So one other thing to mention about Mike Davis, he is coming in on short notice. Granted, he is in great shape. So good fight. Looking forward to this as the 4th fight of the card. Next up, we have Carla Esparza against Verna Dandaroba. Dandaroba is coming over from Invicta on short notice. She is an $8,000. She has an $8,000 price tag on DraftKings. Dandaroba, 30 years of age. She is currently the plus 100 underdog. She was actually the favorite at one point during the week. Carla Esparza, man, look at her track record. Her resume. She's taken on so many of the better fighters at 115 pounds. She has fought the likes of Tatiana Suarez, Claudia Gadelia, Cynthia Calvillo, Rose Namajunas, Tecia Torres, Joanna Jedrzejczyk. She's going to look to wrestle for 8,200. Worth a look. This fight is expected to go to the distance. I suspect we'll see some transitions taking place in this fight. I have a feeling a lot of people may be suckered into rostering Jandiroba, just simply seeing that 14-0 record. But she's the real deal. Legitimate black belt. That's what you want to see if the fight hits ground. Esparza, I'm wondering when we're going to start to see the mileage wear on her. She never gave up when she fought Suarez. She was in some really bad spots, getting ragdolled. I at certain points of the fight thought that her team was going to throw in the towel, but they didn't end up doing that. I like the newcomer here, Jandiroba, to score what is now considered an upset. But at 8,000, Jandiroba may be the highly owned fighter in DraftKings. It depends on what people do. If they go to the name, Esparza's got a name, but good fight. Good fight. Looking forward to it. Next up, we head to the heavyweight division. We have the, man, what nickname do you want to give? He's not the Pitbull anymore, Arlovsky. The guy's been around forever. He's taken many brutal losses. His chin, it's held up recently. 27-18 record. Now he's down at ATT, 40 years old, plus 130 underdog, taking on Augusto Sakai. Sakai, don't let the looks fool you. He 27 years of age, big heavyweight, has a decent gas tank, solid chin. 8,400 for Sakai. You've got 7,800 for Arlovsky. This fight is expected to go the distance at minus 165. They have identical reach. If Sakai can start chopping away at Arlovsky's legs, I know Arlovsky's going to probably try to use some movement, get inside and out, use his boxing, do what he's done in the last few fights. Although we did see him against Struve take fights to the mat. I don't think he's going to do that in this case. I think he's going to be content dancing around, popping that jab, getting in, getting out. Kind of like Sakai here at minus 140. 8,400, he's in that mid-range. If Arlovsky does survive, which odds say he is going to survive, he could outvolume Sakai. But I have a tough time putting faith in a 40-year-old who has 18 professional losses on his record. I think you really have to take a long, hard look at this. But I lean towards Sakai in this matchup. Next up, we head to the men's welterweight division. We have Ben Saunders against Takashi Sato. Sato, 28 years old, minus 200, 9,000 on the board from a DraftKings perspective. Taking on Ben Saunders, who, man, I honestly thought he was dead when he got knocked out by Lyman Good. That was really, really hard to watch. The Alan Jaban fight was also a fight that was hard to stomach. At one point, actually, during this card that we're seeing today, I saw that one of the fights that was canceled was Mike Perry against Ben Saunders. Thank God they did not make that matchup. Ben Saunders, he's got the rubber guard. He's got the 10th planet jiu-jitsu. He's 36 years old. He's a plus 185 underdog. He's the bottom of the barrel at 7,200 from DraftKings. this is a total fade job of Saunders from my perspective. Sato, it's the quality of opponent. I know we have to consider that, but I'm really concerned here for Ben Saunders and his well-being. That chin is just totally decimated. If Saunders can get in the clinch and start landing knees, that's where he gets the work done. He actually tried to do that against Lineker, but it just was not happening. So Sato for the win here. This fight also was minus 350 to end inside the distance. So be cognizant of that as well. Next up, we head to the men's lightweight division where we have Roosevelt Roberts taking on Thomas Gifford. This is another fight that's supposed to end inside the distance. Odds sitting at minus 300 right now. We've got a Roosevelt Roberts, 25 years old, dynamic striker. He'll get in there and also shoot for takedowns and submissions. He's taking on a Thomas Gifford who, man, watching this guy's tape, it's kind of wonder how someone becomes so successful nailing submissions off of their back when they're in situations that are dangerous for them, and to rely on somebody to do that in a fight like this, unless they have an elite ground game. I try to fade fighters like that, and I will in this case. I know Gifford has the 3-inch reach advantage, but Roosevelt Roberts, he is a man on fire right now. He is your highest priced DraftKings play at 9,500. Folks should be, or will be some people who will be scared away to play that $9,500, namely because you're not going to have enough room to fill out the rest of your roster. But you know what? You don't want to dumpster dive, But Roosevelt Roberts should step on the gas here and finish this fight within 2 rounds, I think. On to the next one. We have Hands of Stone, John Lineker taking on Cory Sandhagen. This is this is my main event. I am looking forward to this fight. This fight is not expected to go the distance. We're talking 235ers here. We're talking a Cory Sandhagen who is coming in from elevation in Colorado. He has an 8-inch height reach, a 4-inch arm reach, and Cory Sandhagen is coming in as an underdog, hovering around plus 120. John Lineker, 8,500. John Lineker is going to come at you. He is relentless. He's going to be throwing hooks. He does not give a shit about what you throw at him. He's just going to come at you. And Cory Sandhagen, I'm actually, one of my major concerns for Cory Sandhagen is not Lineker's first punch or a second punch of a combination, but it's going to be the third and fourth punch as he closes the range, as he tries to land that third and fourth shot. If he digs to the body, if he comes up top, Sandhagen is going to be vulnerable. We saw in the Alcantara fight, and even also in the Batista fight, he was in a little bit of trouble there. He gets clipped. He can get dropped. This kid does not give up on himself. This is a huge step up in competition. I think that we are going to see Cory Sandhagen implement if this fight goes the distance, I think we're going to see Sandhagen get the victory. I think there also is a chance that we may see Sandhagen get a finish here. I know that through 39 fights, Lineker hasn't been TKO'd. What does that say about the guy's chin? He's almost immortal. I'm going to go with the slight underdog here in Sandhagen. I understand the reservations. I like Lineker from a DraftKings point of view at 8,500. He's in that mid-range. He's going to be throwing punches and bunches. He's going to be there. He's going to be there, and that's what you want. You want someone who's going to pursue their opponent. He's not gonna land takedowns, although he has a legitimate jiu-jitsu game. That may benefit Sandhagen here. So if Sandhagen can stay at range, if he's able to chew up Lineker's leg, if he's able to use his footwork in combination with his lightning quick reflexes, I think that will pay dividends. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and pick Cory Sandhagen to win this fight. Next up, we have Glover Teixeira against Ion Kuta Lava. Another great matchmaking by the UFC and Sean Shelby. Glover Teixeira, 39 years old, 28-7 record, taking on Ion Kuta Lava, who is 14 years his junior. Ion Kuta Lava sitting at the plus 110 underdog. Kuta Lava 8,300 on DraftKings. Kuta Lava should be severely underowned due to the line movement and the DraftKings price value. We have Glover Teixeira at 7,900 right now, so I suspect we'll see Glover Teixeira fairly highly owned. I have numerous concerns about Glover Teixeira, but I also see what the positives that he brings to the table. Glover Teixeira, let's talk about the positives. So he's got a phenomenal ground game. He has solid wrestling. He has stick-to-itiveness. He will not give up on himself. You need to put him out for him to quit. I remember watching years ago when he fought OSP. He was getting lit up on the feet, and I was like, oh, it's a matter of time. And then he turned the tide and ended up taking the fight to the ground and getting the submission. Against Carl Roberson, same thing happened. He's had some success against Jared Cannonier. I was at that fight. Against Misha Serkinov. Then flip the coin. So Glover Teixeira has slowed down tremendously on the feet. He transitions quickly on the ground, and he's able to use his wrestling really well. But when he's on the feet, he looks almost sloth-like. It's on the verge of disturbing to watch him plod forward. He is, in my opinion, I have no idea how this guy's 39 years old. He, to me, moves and acts and looks like someone who's in their mid to late 40s. And he's got so many miles on him. Ion Kuta Lava, on the other hand, let's talk about him. So we've seen Antigulov come in and exploit what could be a deficiency as far as wrestling goes. Yes. We've also seen a stamina issue, a gas tank issue. He comes out and throws the kitchen sink at his opponents. He will almost guarantee do that tonight. Ion Kuta Lava, a lot of people need to realize that he came into the UFC when he was in his early 20s. He fought Jared Cannonier at 22 years of age. And, that's his choice to do that. But he looked pretty damn good against Jared Cannonier that first round, and even into the midway through the second round until he gassed out. This is 3 years later. We haven't seen Kuta Lava in a while. I was reading that he suffered a chest injury and a knee injury during training, and that's why this is a rematch of a fight that was booked earlier in the year. But my thought process is, if Ion Kuta Lava can get to Glover Teixeira early in the fight and his takedown defense holds up, he should win this fight, and he should win this fight inside the distance. If Kuta Lava gets taken down, Glover can transition, or he may be able to transition through him like a warm knife through butter. I'm concerned about that. And Kuta Lava could be open to being submitted. We saw against Misha Serkinov how Kuta Lava was susceptible to folks who implement a grappling heavy game plan. So before you make a play on this fight, also take a look at the wear and tear, and also I think people need to recognize that although we don't have a objective way of determining improvements from fight to fight, Kuta Lava doesn't fight out of a great camp. He's in Moldova, right? But I'm curious to see if he's made improvements since his last fight. And if he did, then Glover may be in trouble. So this is a fight to target. It's supposed to end inside the distance at minus 325. I'm leaning towards Kuta Lava in this spot. I think he has he's a little sneaky when it comes to DraftKings. Next up, we have a tremendous card. This could also be a main event in on most cards. We've got Mike Perry taking on Alex Oliveira. Alex Oliveira minus 160 favorite, 8,800 from DraftKings perspective, taking on the 27-year-old Mike Perry, who's coming in with a 12-4 record. Mike Perry left Jackson Wink and ended up at gym in Florida, where he's been training with the likes of Jacare Souza, Mike Davis, etc. Mike Perry, we've got him figured out by now. Mike Perry, 7,400 from a DraftKings perspective, plus 150 underdog. The wild card is Alex Oliveira. If Oliveira comes to the table here and tries to get in the clinch, if he's able to get takedowns, I do see Mike Perry being submitted. If he plays around on the feet, he could have some success early, but Mike Perry is dangerous at any time in the fight. And Mike Perry can be a bit unpredictable, but you could say the same about Alex Oliveira. And Oliveira, another thing about him is he will empty his gas tank in the first round. And I'm banking on that. This line originally opened. The fight does not go the distance at minus 215. It's up to minus 325 now. I lean towards Oliveira to get this done, but he does some pretty crazy things. And it's amazing how the times change. Ryan LaFleur was fighting Alex Oliveira, and the odds for that to end inside the distance were hovering around +2, +300. And he finished that fight in devastating fashion with an uppercut. So we know Oliveira has a path to victory if he's able to lock up a submission and get this fight to the ground. Perry's a strong dude, so his takedown defense may hold up for a little bit, and he's dangerous while the fight's on the feet. I'm leaning Oliveira to win this, though. And at 8,800, he's right below that upper tier. So I'm interested to see ownership, especially when you consider Perry's only 7,400. Okay, now co-main event of the evening. I'm going to try to get these next two fights done in about 5 minutes. So let's see if we can do it. So Greg Hardy is taking on Dmitry Smolyakov. Smolyakov was destroyed by Cyril Asker and Henrique. He, we know, brings a grappling heavy game plan, but we haven't seen him implement that in other fights. He has a lot of submissions on his 9-2 record, and heavyweights, right? We know there's some variance there. Somebody lands, it's over. Greg Hardy, 3-1, has a deficiency when it comes to the ground. But when Smoliakov tries to close the distance, that's when this fight should, that's when we should see fireworks. And Greg Hardy's striking accuracy may pay dividends, and this fight might end. Greg Hardy, 9,300 on DraftKings. Smoliakov, 6,900. If Smoliakov can close the distance, clinch with Greg Hardy, take him to the ground, make this ugly, both guys have horrible gas tanks. Greg Hardy, though, I think we're going to see his gas tank improve a little bit from his last fight. But something we also need to think about is, from a DraftKings perspective, at 9,300, how long is Smoliakov going to be able to survive, and how many points? What kind of ceiling does Greg Hardy have? Is he a fighter who is going to be able to land multiple knockdowns on Smoliakov? I see this as probably being a one knockdown, game over type situation. Smoliakov, on the other hand, at 6,900, if he's able to take Greg Hardy down. Now, both of these guys were at ATT for a while. But if Smoliakov is able to get Greg Hardy to the ground, Hardy may be able to get back up, and it might be a rinse and repeat type situation for as long as this lasts. This shouldn't last more than a round, because look at the fight does not go the distance. Prop is hovering around minus 750 right now. That opened at minus 305. Paul Shaughnessy and I had a Twitter exchange about a year ago, and we were talking about fighters who the UFC could bring in to face Greg Hardy right off the bat. Fighters who they could exploit and get Hardy a quick victory. And Smoliakov was somebody who I recognized right off the bat, and here it is coming to fruition. So I'd like to move forward with Greg Hardy to get the victory here. And at 9,300, I think you have some better options from a DraftKings perspective. You're looking at a guy, Greg Hardy, who was DQ'd in his last fight, who was losing, in my eyes, the fight to Crowder. So there is risk associated with this play, but 9,300 on Hardy, he would be my pick. Next up, the other thing is Hardy sitting around minus 330 favorite right now. So we've got main event of the evening. We have Jacare Souza against Jack Hermansson. I've been fortunate enough to see Jacare Souza fight twice in person, and although he made quick work of Tim Boetsch against Chris Weidman, he was losing that fight on his way to taking a 30-27 loss, and he unleashed a barrage of punches against Weidman, one that landed against his forehead and took him out of the fight. So right off the bat, Souza, although he looks like he's fading, he does have a little extra in the gas tank almost at all times. I'm not saying that's going to be there in the fourth or fifth round, though. Jack Hermansson, 30 years old, 7,300 from DraftKings. Hermansson with the 5-inch reach advantage, something to be aware of. Jacare, we know exactly what he's capable of. One of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the game. Jacare getting up there, man. 39 years old, closing in on his 40th birthday. 8,900 in DK. I expect to see a lot of Jacare out there in Fantasyland. Souza, this is the way this fight could play out a few different ways. If Hermansson wants to engage in grappling early, that is going to be a big mistake as far as I'm concerned. He's got great footwork. If he's able to stay at range for the first round and pepper Jacare up, then he has a legitimate chance at winning this fight. If Souza gets this fight to the ground early, it should end rather quickly. I do want to see when it hits the ground if we're able to see any reversals. If Hermansson is able to land top position, that's a concern for me as well. Jacare is the real deal. When we look at this fight, also you have to realize that Hermansson's coming in on short notice. He made easy work of or quick work of Branch. Hermansson is a dangerous fighter. He's got a lot of confidence. Souza, I've heard in his interviews, he's kind of changed his tone recently, but he wants to get this fight over with and get that title fight, which may not happen. I actually like Hermansson in this fight from a Draftkings play if he can survive early. That's a big if. So up and down this card, we're playing with fire here. It's a dangerous proposition. We have a number of lines that are very close. We have 9 fights that are supposed to end inside the distance according to the odds makers. Proceed with caution. Best of luck, everybody, in your plays. You can follow me at MMAOddsBreaker, as well as CapperTech, as well as BetMMA.tips, MikesMMAPicks. Have a great fight day, and be well, my friends.